perfect start to life with Manchester City. He was one of 9 goal scorers in their 10-1 win against Exeter City at the weekend. He had one tonight as well. He actually had 2, as we saw, but one was chalked off. A really good night for him, and here he is speaking after the match.
Well, Antoine, a lot of good moments in your life and career of late. I guess that would have to go down as another one.
No, 100%. Tough game today, but we just needed to stick in there. We knew we'd get chances, and I was just in the right area to tap it in, and obviously we're victorious, so happy.
Yeah, does it help the belief and confidence you've brought to the club? You've obviously been flying all season long, and you've picked up where you've left off at Bournemouth.
I think the whole environment here is perfect. Everyone's confident and wanting to achieve the best, so I've just come into that, and they've helped me with my confidence and made me feel welcome.
Different working for this manager, and obviously you've seen these players from the outside, but working with them in a couple of games and the little time you've probably had on the training pitch.
Yeah, it's been a lot, definitely been a lot, but I've enjoyed it so far. I'm definitely picking up things very quickly, and yeah, I'm enjoying it, like I said.
Crazy to think it was last Wednesday that you scored your last goal for Bournemouth, and here you are, 2 City goals in already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just taking the confidence that I had from Bournemouth here, and like I said, playing with a smile on my face, so I'm enjoying every moment.
What did you say to the camera at the end?
Second goal should have counted. The referee came and spoke to me and told me what was going on, but yeah, it's what it is.
Okay, well done. You're the player of the match.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Tom.
Well, he said that the second goal should have counted. Let's see what our rules expert, Christina Uncle, thinks. Good to see you, Christina. What do you think? And what do you think about how long it took as well to come to the decision?
You can't fault the player of the match for wanting that extra goal, right? There's bonuses tied to that. But from the referee standpoint, it is the correct decision. This is one, and I can understand why generally speaking, people do not like this. One, it's what we call a toenail offside, and 2, at the same time, we're talking about, right, is he really impacting the goalkeeper in making this save? Anytime you have, particularly when we talk, right? So you do have offside. It's very clear. We saw the offside lines dropped. It marks that he's in an offside position. That's why the referee is sent to the monitor, right? Because he has to make a subjective decision as to whether or not there was interference with play. People are going to hold on to my words, interference of play, and say absolutely not. That's where the argument should be. But anytime there is someone in an offside position who's very close to the goalkeeper within the 6-yard, and particularly the 6-yard box, let me apologize, which is very, very close to the goalkeeper in this situation, is in impacting a player who has an opportunity to play the ball, be close to the goalkeeper. 9 out of 10 times that will be given, and that is what we would consider as an offside position. So even though, yes, he's in an offside position, 2, he's impacting and interfering with different opponents, as well as being very close to the keeper, this would be the decision that would be expected and the outcome. But it is a subjective decision, but one that would be the preferred decision, and one that I would say would be wrong if the VAR did not send it down for review.
Christina, we've not argued before, but I feel like we're getting close to it for the first time. This is not a footballing moment, though, is it? If that's a clear and obvious error, then we can't be waiting that long, surely. It's 4 or 5 minutes of extra time because of that decision. And if it is subjective, why did the referee have to go and still look at it 4, 5, 6 times? Why can't VAR say, hey, we think it's this is the reason why, and we follow it? I love referees, as you know, but I feel like the rule book now is making it even harder for you guys to ref games. It's getting more complicated. VAR was meant to be in to make it easier, and it seems like it's creating more problems.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to be happening. This wasn't something that was lost on us officials. When you had footballers, right, and at the end of the day, their coaches, their managers, their stakeholders, there were referees at the table that made the decisions, but ultimately these decisions were made by other individuals that were not just referee-based. So there was all voices were at the table. Now, you hit it in the head. These things that go to VAR and a referee goes to VAR are subjective decisions. So if this was a typical offside play, which is what everyone expects, you're an offside decision, you're in offside position, you play the ball and it's black and white, that at least here domestically, Major League Soccer, you still go to the monitor, so everyone does it a little differently. But over there, they would just go into the referee's ear, say offside, offside, played with the ball. Here we go. He would just make the decision and not go to the monitor. But anything that's subjective, the VAR protocol, referees, the footballers at stake would prefer that the referee who has the final decision makes that subjective decision and doesn't leave that up to the booth to make that subjective decision. That does take a little bit more time into the process, but then there's a decision of they would rather have have the center referee have all the details, information, and be the one to make that final decision, as opposed to somebody up in the booth who doesn't have the tempo and the feel of the game.
So all in all, you've got to only really look at the scoreline after tonight, haven't you, Troy? 2-0, they're through, now they're at home for the next leg. Will Pep Guardiola be feeling as happy as that?
No, I think he'll still be a little bit concerned. Grella alluded to it. A lot of balls, one ball over the top beats them. A lot of balls down the side beats them. Still things to work on. That back line is disjointed. No real leader in there from a centre-half point of view, but young players who are learning their craft. But when they go forward, they're exceptional. They could have scored 4, 5, 6 on another night. Again, we're talking about them winning 2-0. Probably should have had 3, and Haaland had a bad game. So when you've got arguably the best goal scorer in world football, I know Nigel thinks a bit differently, but one of the best goal scorers in world football, you would then have to say, once we get him firing, once we find out how this works, we'll be much better. And they changed their team as well. That was more or less Newcastle's best team. And they started with Rodri on the bench, Shirky on the bench. It's a real good moment for Man City.
Here's a look at just some of those moments you were talking about for Erling Haaland, Nige, because he did look frustrated, didn't he, in moments today. Is it all frustration for him, though, or as a player, are you still seeing the hard work that he's doing, distracting defenders and pulling them out of position?
I think for me, when you look at his consistency and his return for Manchester City and also in the Premier League, it was just a bad day in the office for him today. It was one of those days of just frustrations, and you could see the frustration got the better of him, and a lot with his body language, just not really getting the ball. It wasn't working out for him. We've all been there as players. We've had days like this, but I wouldn't look into it too much. But I would say when you look at it today, obviously, goals and assists and touches, you saw these stats recently for him. Today was just a bad day at the office. I wouldn't look any more.
The last 6 looked like they were a bad day at the office with only one goal.
Just being a penalty as well.
By his standards, right? He scores over a goal a game if you look at his career overall. So
but
he
even
should
when you
have
look at it,
7 goals in this.
100%, but when you look at it today, though, how many clear-cut chances did he really have?
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you look at the chances that Wissa had and Voltemada had, if that was Erling Haaland,
no clear-cut chances. Really.
He had no clear-cut chances. So there was lack of creativity from his standpoint today, and as the game went on, you could see the frustration. So for me, I think that Semenyo coming in is the big thing. That's the big story. Taking the pressure off him, and he scored again today, and that played a part. And we talked, and Bernardo Silva just alluded to it there. Him coming on, we've played against him. We see him arriving in the box, scoring goals. He's a finisher. You could see that's what they need. They're telling us what they kind of feel that they've been missing more in the team.
But isn't that positive in some ways? Because how many times, Troy, have we heard, they're too reliant on Erling Haaland? Today, they didn't show that. They showed that even on Erling Haaland's quiet nights, they can still get the job done.
For me, this is part of his evolution as well as a striker, as a team player, and he's been added to the leadership group now. There's moments in games where, towards at the end of the game, Shirky's driving through, he peels off on the right-hand side. He's expected, because every time he's played, people slip him the ball. Now you've got the like of Shirky, you've got Semenyo, you've got Doku, you've got Foden. They want to score as well. They think they can score. So it's part of his learning process now. Right, I'm not going to get the ball all the time. He's also very clinical, we know that. But you can't keep getting frustrated. I've been there as a lone striker. It's horrible. When you finish a game, you don't have a shot. You're like, what did I do today? What was the point? But he's got 26 goals. He hasn't scored. He scored 1 goal in the last 7, and he's still got 26. There'll be games coming up in the not too distant future where he gets 3, 4 goals in the game, and he'll have 5 shots. It's just part and parcel of being the Erling Haaland monster that we know.
And the more that they play together as well, Semenyo coming there, the more that they'll blossom and their relationship will grow. The more they'll have a better understanding. We saw something in the first half where Semenyo finally went to the byline, put a good ball in that we thought, but Erling Haaland wasn't in the back stick. He was just standing near the penalty spot, where if they start to understand each other, he'll know exactly where to leave the ball for him, and then they'll start helping each other out, and the chemistry will grow, and the more it'll be better for Manchester City.
The one play Troy's talking about where Shirky has the ball and he peels off, you have to give him that ball. If you have Haaland there, you have to give him that ball. You have to feed the monster. You have to give him the ball. You have to make sure he doesn't get frustrated. You have to make sure that he doesn't lose his touch. 1 goal in 6 is not good. If you're going to win things, he's going to be a big part of it, especially in the big games coming up in the Champions League as well, and the Premier League down the final stretch. You have to feed him when you have the opportunity. That's not mean to say every single time, but it's not good enough to play 90 minutes and not give him the service that he deserves. You have to give him service, because the more service you give him, it also opens up the game for the guys like Doku and Semenyo.
Troy, you were just saying as well, you've been in that position. Are you concerned that once you get, 5-6 games in with just one goal, is it a mental problem at that point as well?
No, not for this guy. No, absolutely not.
No.
You have to look back to the Liverpool game. He cuts inside, he has a shot, hits the inside of the post. 9 times out of 10, he hits the inside of the post, goes in. He hit the inside of the post and went out for a throw, and he hit it that hard. I just think, they got the Manchester derby Saturday. If you're Man United, you're still worrying about Erling Haaland. I think there's just going to be games and moments. He's got 26 goals now. What have we got? 3.5, 4 months left?
Yeah, we're just over halfway, right?
I'm still confident he's going to get 40 goals this season, so he's going to be okay.
He's one of those players as well, in the next game he can end up scoring a hat-trick. That's the thing. And then you won't be talking about the past 6 games. He's got that ability about him, so it's not something...
But we don't even want to talk about it. She's making us talk about it.
It is a talking point if your star striker's only got
as well, right?
1 goal and it's a penalty in the last 6. Well, Newcastle, they had 4 home games in a row. They'd won 3 of them prior to tonight, but now it's a really difficult road stretch. I mean, difficult might even be an understatement, Nige.
Difficult definitely is an understatement. You look at some of these teams they're going to face. Still, all these teams have quality to give them a real run for their money in games. The Paris Saint-Germain side, it's up and down, but they do have some world-class players. Liverpool side has been inconsistent, but more starting to find their form. Back again at City, Spurs, you never know what you're going to get. It's a long run of fixtures that's going to be very difficult for them, and especially when the injuries are starting to maybe pile up for this Newcastle side now. So you're a little bit worried.
There's one winner in there, isn't there, Nige? That Villa game will be an easy one.
Nah, good chance. No chance.
A lot of travel in those legs. Let's go back to Anita Jones to St James's Park. Anita, it was interesting there to listen to Eddie Howe kind of talk about the fatigue at the weekend, obviously coming in off that game against Bournemouth in the FA Cup where it went all the way through extra time to penalties. Did you really see that from the players in the second half? Did they look tired?
No, in fact, I thought they really gave a good account of themselves. I mean, he maybe would have liked them to be more clinical. In fact, he pointed to that, the missed opportunities. And in stoppage time, I guess the real frustration for the Newcastle fans here is that had they been going to the Etihad with just a goal down, then it looks like it's a result they can overturn. Now it's a bit of a mountain. And you mentioned, Nigel did, the mounting injuries there. I don't think any of those players who are key in defence will be back in time for that second leg away at the Etihad. So overall, I guess he'd be happy that he didn't pick, we actually saw Murphy go off injured, I think with a hamstring injury, but in terms of the back line at least, the players that started all seemed to be healthy.
Yeah, Anita, what was the crowd's reaction to the second goal? Because we all felt like if they stayed 1-0 down, maybe there's a possibility, but the second goal felt like a backbreaker. Did the fans, what was their reaction to that one?
Yeah, in fact, if we go back to City's second goal, which was disallowed, which would have made an even more perfect day for Antoine Semenyo, the atmosphere in here was electric. It really felt like it woke up the crowd because they all of a sudden saw themselves having an inroad to try and get something on the score sheet. When that second goal did come in, though, for the visitors, it did feel like they were rather deflated because I mentioned to Eddie Howe that Nick Woltemade came close twice before Ryan Shirky got that goal. So you just feel, had they managed to like I mentioned, make it 1-1, the task wouldn't be so big. And you've just listed all those games that they've got coming up away from St James's Park. The club really may have to look to bring in reinforcements in this transfer window, something I don't think they had intended to do at the end of the year.
Just really quickly, Anita, two questions in one. One, were Man City as fluid as it looked in the second half? And with obviously there being 2-0 up, could have been 3. Will that send a message to Chelsea and Arsenal that Man City are really ready to go? And will there be enough there to fear for the other guys?
You speak of the fluidity in the second half, Troy. I think we saw bits of it in the first half too. There was really some nice link-up play that I saw Pep Guardiola applaud his players for. So it's really interesting how Antoine Semenyo has slotted in. I asked Bernardo Silva about that, and he was just so complimentary of him. They've all of a sudden got this outlet there, someone who's used to performing in the Premier League. In fact, he's third in terms of goals after Erling Haaland and Igor Thiago across all competitions for Premier League teams. So it's going to be a really interesting prospect. I think the fact that they even brought him in already sends a message to the likes of the Arsenals and the Chelseas, and maybe Villa. You didn't mention Villa. I wondered that was deliberate there,
don't
but
worry.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to put words in your mouth there, but you said it. So in terms of sending a message to the other title challengers, just with bringing Antoine Semenyo in, I think that does it. But yeah, alluding to how they played, it almost feels like we're starting to see that City of old. You think of how devastating wingers in the past have looked at this club. Maybe that's the future here with the likes of Doku and Semenyo on the wings.
They've had amazing record against Newcastle, 11 wins, 37 goals they've scored. They've only allowed 3. In all the metrics, this is not looking good for the return leg, is it? Especially with the players coming into form, like you mentioned, because Jeremy Doku was another one that really impressed you today.
Yeah, Jeremy Doku is fantastic. You've got 2 out-and-out wingers, like you said. These are 2 wingers you have to double up. And there's an example, Newcastle, 2v1 situation, getting crosses in the box. And now obviously Semenyo coming in there as well. These are problems that Manchester City are causing now for opponents. You can't leave these guys in one-on-one situations. And for me, Doku has been great. But for him to take his game to another level, needs to score more goals. We know he can create, but I think now he needs to start getting himself on the score sheet. And now with having Semenyo on the opposite wing, Doku can find himself now coming in the back post like Semenyo just did for his goal, and hopefully he can add goals to his game. And it's a problem. Now these teams are going to have to change again tactically to be able to handle Manchester City.
Doku's unmarkable when he's on his day and when he pushes it past you, but that goal is too easy, the first goal. He can just push it past you and whip it right across the face of your goal. Lewis Miley was all over the place today. He was getting burned all over, and Troy's telling me, oh yeah, but he's a center midfielder. So I understand that, but if you look at the first goal, he's not doubling, he's not inside the box marking anyone, and he's not covering the near post. He's doing nothing. If you watch it back again, he's just kind of there, just standing there doing nothing. So when you play players out of position, that can happen against really good players like Doku.
I would say from Newcastle's perspective, Hall had a fantastic game. The young lad there, he had a real...
The left back was fantastic.
But in terms of Man City, I think we're seeing the new version of City now with Pep and Pep Linders both doing it. Doku goes down the left-hand side, crosses it, 6 players in the box. You never used to see that. It used to be 1 or 2, then it'd be a cutback, it'd be a cutback for someone running in. Now you see them crash the box.
Mikel Arteta's work at Arsenal is being viewed in an even brighter light after the recent coaching shakeups elsewhere. With Chelsea parting ways with Enzo Maresca and Manchester United moving on from Ruben Amorim, the contrast is hard to miss. Arsenal has kept moving forward under Arteta, giving him time through difficult stretches, and now seeing the payoff as the club pushes again in the Premier League title race. It also raises a bigger question about strategy. While Chelsea and United are changing direction again, Arteta has been in place for more than 6 years, outlasting a long list of managers across those 2 clubs in that span. That stability has become part of the story, and it was a major talking point on the Seeing Red podcast with Tom Canton and John Cross. Beyond reacting to Amorim's dismissal and breaking down wins over Aston Villa and Bournemouth, plus Manchester City's loss to Chelsea, the conversation kept returning to one core idea: structure. Not just who is the coach, but how much power that coach has, and whether the club is built to support a long-term project. Cross pointed to Arsenal as a rare example of patience turning into real strength. He argued that Arsenal's willingness to back Arteta through the messy early phases helped create the stable position they're in now, and that this kind of time and support investment is what can turn a club into something truly solid. Canton's response was sharp and honest. Arteta's arc, he said, has almost become a problem for other clubs, because it tempts them to keep coaches they probably shouldn't. But at the same time, it's still the best example of what can happen when you hire the right person and actually give them time. And that time wasn't smooth. The discussion highlighted how Arsenal could easily have pulled the plug early. 2 8th-place finishes, then 5th, missing out on the Champions League, and a Europa League semi-final exit to Unai Emery's Villarreal. Any of those moments could have pushed a club into panic mode. Instead, the argument is that Arsenal recognized the bigger reality. Arteta didn't have the resources to compete at the required level right away. The squad needed a rebuild. The roster needed to be refreshed. That's where the comparison to Chelsea and United becomes even more pointed. The podcast suggested that recruitment and decision-making structure are often what determine whether a coach survives. If signings don't land, results suffer. And if a coach doesn't have enough influence or the club isn't aligned behind a clear plan, it becomes much easier for things to collapse. In other words, giving time only works if the coach is empowered to shape the team in a way that matches the vision. Cross also emphasized that Arteta's situation stood out because he pushed to be a true manager, not just a head coach. The idea is simple. Top coaches want a real say in the build, and they want the club to match what they were promised when they took the job. The discussion even pointed to how Arteta survived a low moment, like the home loss to Burnley, because the club stayed behind him. And in that period, with fan pressure affected by the COVID-era environment, Arsenal were able to hold their nerve instead of reacting emotionally. Meanwhile, the big unknowns now shift back to Chelsea and Manchester United. Who replaces Amorim? And how will the next chapter look at Chelsea? The answers may come sooner than people expect. But for Arsenal, the reality stays the same. They're stable, they're moving forward, and they're still in the title chase, while others are starting over again. And that contrast can shape how people judge every manager in the league. Because when two massive clubs hit the reset button again, it forces the same question Cross raised on the show. Is the quick switch actually fixing the problem, or just delaying the real work? The bigger takeaway from the discussion is that time isn't a magic solution by itself. It only becomes valuable when the club's structure supports the plan, and when the coach has the influence to push the squad in the direction he believes it needs to go. That's why the distinction between head coach and manager kept coming up. The podcast point is that if a coach is expected to own the results, he usually wants a meaningful say in the decisions that shape those results. And if he doesn't get that, patience alone won't save him. That's also where Arteta's early struggles get reframed. Those finishes and setbacks could have become a reason to panic. Instead, they became evidence of why alignment matters, because Arsenal chose to treat them as part of a build, not a final verdict. And once the squad was reshaped the way the club believed it needed to be, the results started to reflect that long-term approach. So the repercussions aren't just about Arsenal looking stable, it's about how stability changes your margin for error. When you don't reset every year, you're not constantly starting from zero. You're building on decisions, learning from setbacks, and keeping a clearer identity. For Chelsea and Manchester United, the immediate consequence is obvious. They're changing direction again, which means the next appointment carries even more weight. Because every new coach isn't just judged on results. He's judged on whether the club is finally giving him the structure and authority that the role demands. That's why the question at the end matters so much. Who will replace Amorim, and how will Liam Rosenior do at Chelsea? Because those answers will test the exact theme the show kept returning to. Time, support, structure, and control. And for Arsenal, it's a different kind of pressure. Stability doesn't guarantee trophies, but it does keep you in the fight longer. And right now, while others restart, Arsenal get to stay focused on what they're already doing, chasing the Premier League title.